And welcome to the November edition of Intentional Schools webinar. Today's topic is FAQ edition. And what that means is we have a bunch of questions from people all over the place who are kind of wondering what Intentional Schools is and what we do and what we offer. And today's panel is the same as usual. We have Julie Bryant, we have Jackie Montroy, and we have Mr. Jim Walter. Welcome, guys.
Hey, Seb.
So let's get started right off the bat here. The format's gonna be, I have a list of questions here from people around the area and other states. And so we're just gonna kind of go round robin here and ask the questions. And we'll start with Julie, if that's okay. And so we'll kind of just see how this goes. So our first question is from Martin from Seattle, Washington. Julie.
Hey, Martin.
Martin wants to know, help me to visualize what your organization does to support school teams. Julie, you want to take this one?
Sure. So in case any of you were didn't know, education is really stressful. It's a hard gig. And it is really hard. It's hard to work with kids and it's hard to work with people. And that's what education is all day, every day. So that's where we come in. We help schools to build healthy teams and healthy leaders who work together. And with the goal of keeping teachers in the classroom for longer. We want teachers and educators that stay in education for decades, not just years, definitely not just months. We want people in it for the long haul. And a huge part of that is building a healthy culture because we're doing hard work and we don't want it to be harder interpersonally. And so helping schools to develop cultures that build up leaders and where you feel like you have a voice and you have a part of things just makes a big difference in keeping people in the field doing what they're really good at. So we help schools do that through professional development, through workshops on getting to know your team and getting to know yourself better, talking about how to have hard conversations with people. It's the people skills that burn people out.
I like what you said there, Julie, because a lot of the stuff seems to be common sense, but we don't always practice common sense, right?
Right. True.
Awesome. Thanks, Julie. Our next question is Chuck in the Lone Star State. Jim, you want to take this one?
Sure.
Chuck wants to know, do I reinforce the notion that our kids will succeed because they are enrolled in my school?
No, this is a great question, Chuck. I got to diverge for just a moment. Schools are stressful, Julie. I used to look like Brad Pitt in Legends of the Fall. And when I got into leadership, I've lost most of my hair since then. I know you still see the handsome me underneath, but Chuck, thanks for the question. What sets intentional schools apart, or one of many things is, and Julie, you hinted at this, but our ability to deliver leadership assessments, emotional intelligence, the DISC, the personality profile, the working genius, the Colby, a wide variety of assessments that can be accessible to you and your leadership team that really help us develop a much deeper sense of self-awareness. And when your team can understand their gifts, their talents and passions, as well as those of the people that work for them, that is how we reinforce that kids will succeed because they're in our school, because they're with us. We can deliver that through assessments online, or we can also do it in person, team days. But leaders really need to understand their own value, understand themselves, their own value, and the value of the people working with and for them. So great question, Chuck. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, that's important. Understanding everybody's unique ability as a leader, right? So awesome. Very good. Jackie, will you take this next question?
Yes.
From Ron, who is from Pawnee, Indiana. Ron is asking, tell me about the time frame of a PD session that you would provide. Is it in person, all day, partial day, multiple days?
Oh,
Ron, first of all, Pawnee, Indiana, that's a great place. That is a great place. Got great people up there. Great people. Thank you, Ron, for asking about our PD sessions. Jimmy just kind of went over a lot of what we offer. And just like our offerings, that we tailor our offerings, the content to what you need, we do the same with the PD, with the timeframes. So we love to do things in person, but we are absolutely available to do them virtually as well. And we have done PDs anywhere from 2-hour sessions all the way to 3-day sessions. Some of our strategy sessions, I know Seb's going to talk about that in a little bit, but those are a couple days here, and then we come back at the end of the quarter, that type of thing. But for our one-off PD sessions, we can tailor it to your availability, because we know that districts and schools plan their PD sessions out months in advance, a year or so in advance. And so we can jump in on your availability. The multiple day one we do is 3 days, and that can be broken up. That can be done 3 days in a row. Like Julie and I did a session for 3 school districts this summer, and that was 3 days in a row, 8 to 4, I think. And then we also have done them before where we would do day 1 content and come back a couple months later at the next PD scheduled day and do day 2, and then a couple months later come back and do the 3rd day. So that's one of the things I love about us, is that we're not like just set in a box, but we can really tailor it to what you need. What we won't do is provide you a PD that you're just going to put on the shelf. We are not interested in that. Not interested. We have all sat through many of those PDs and sat through thinking, how are we going to implement this with our restricted time and resources? And we're just not interested in doing that. So go somewhere else if you want that. But we know you're looking for content that you can really use in take home and put in place right away. So yeah, that was a long-winded answer, but we can, bottom line, we can tailor it to what your time frame is.
Yeah, I love that. So you get a splash if you want certain topics here or there for 2 hours. You get the whole gamut if you want to get leadership, administration, all the teachers, the staff for a 3-day session, all that, right? That's awesome. Thanks for explaining that. Next question, Julie, if you don't mind taking this one.
Sure.
Dolly from Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. Dolly asks
great questions.
She does. Dolly for president.
How do you ensure that all team members have an active voice on a team?
Good one.
That's a great question, Dolly. I would expect nothing less from you. So what you should know about us, if you don't already know, is we are all educators on our team. And so we kind of approach our PDs like these are our students. These are the people we're trying to teach. And because we are all educators, we have really excellent wait time. And so if we ask a question, we will wait it out.
We will.
Until somebody speaks up. And because adults are really just big kids, people will catch on and they will realize, okay, they're not going to move on until we speak. So we might as well jump in. So there's some element of that where when we come and do a PD, we're going to expect it to be interactive. We are not interested in coming up and lecturing for hours on end. We want it to be really useful, and we want to have discussions, and we want people to talk with each other. So we're pretty intentional about expecting it to be interactive. We are also pretty intentional about noticing when groups of people are always sitting together and side conversations. Sometimes you have to split up buddies, and sometimes it's good to mix it up and hear from other people. And so we kind of tackle it like that. Like we're gonna everybody up, we're gonna find a new seat, and you're gonna go talk to somebody that you haven't talked to today. And here's your topic, go talk about this. So we do a lot of those kinds of strategies. And just really taking the mindset of everybody has an important part in the school, in the culture, and everybody's voice matters, and everybody sees things a little bit differently. And from a coaching perspective, it is rarely a bad thing to have another set of eyes on things. And so we kind of set that as the foundation when we're doing our PDs of like, we value everyone's input. Everybody has a different perspective, and we're going to learn from each other. So yeah, that goes all the way from like superintendent all the way down to wherever you might be in the building, regardless of how many people you are overseeing or seeing on a day-to-day basis. Everybody has a part, and we value each of those parts. So yeah.
That's awesome. What I really liked what you said, Julie, was as educators, we've all been in PDs. We migrate towards our friends or our discipline or this or that, but really mixing it up to really get the truth out there and really get having conversation flowing, maybe in a different direction. That's not the norm, right? So the strategies that we put in place to make sure that we really get to the forefront of what we're trying to tackle here today, not just a lot of groupthink type of stuff happening, right?
Absolutely.
Awesome. Jim, if you will take this next question, I may pronounce this wrong. This is a question from Bob, who is from Lake. Want to help me out, Jim?
Looks like Lake Winnipesaukee.
Lake Winnipesaukee from New Hampshire. Jim has some ties to New Hampshire, I think. So, all right. Bob wants to know, what's the number one piece of advice that you'd give to a new administrator who has been assigned a team that has been known to be very dysfunctional?
Oh, Bob is bringing it.
Bob, that's a great question. Seb, thanks for reminding me of my contacts. Dr. Leo Marvin, also from Lake Winnipesaukee in New Hampshire. We're going to baby step this question. Okay, we're doing the work. We're baby stepping it. There's a couple of things I'd tell a new administrator when you come to a dysfunctional team. The first thing is your leadership is going to be important, but the most important thing you do as a leader is going to be less about action and more about listening to understand and not for your turn to reply. Often, sometimes for an entire year, you may listen and digest, write down what you hear, acknowledge what you hear, affirm what you hear, restate what you hear, but not answer questions, not answer or not solve problems just yet, because that's part of building a team. And remember, the person who asks the question in a conversation is the person who's controlling and directing the conversation. It seems odd because you're not giving an answer, but you're controlling the direction of the conversation if you're the one asking questions. The other two things I would mention to a new leader, and I know Bob only asked for one, but I think he can handle these 3 baby steps. So listening to understand. Number 2 is participate in everything. That is the model for successful coaching and developing in leaders, but you're going to supervise recesses. You're going to be at the buses. You're going to be in the cafeteria wiping down tables and opening milks for young kids. You participate in everything. Last but not least, take your work seriously, but not yourself. You've got to have fun at this, and people need to understand that you are determined to enjoy. Dysfunctional teams can drown people, okay? And we don't want that. So you have to be able to demonstrate, I'm going to enjoy this. Okay, I'm going to work hard for you. I'm going to protect you. I'm going to respect you, but I'm going to enjoy this. And hopefully we are together. So thanks, Bob. And if you're in Lake Winnipesaukee, look up Dr. Leo Marvin for even better advice than I just gave.
Thanks, Jim. What really resonated with me, what you said was some of the exact situations, and basically removing the title and demonstrating that you're not just a title to everybody, right? Just because you have a high title, it does not mean that you cannot do all the other things that other people are doing. And that's a great leadership in terms of modeling, right? So awesome.
Thank you.
Next question. Julie, would you take this one?
Sure.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let's go to Jackie.
That's
Jackie,
okay.
would you take this one? Yeah.
Yes,
sorry.
I will.
Daryl from Scranton, Pennsylvania.
I have met Daryl before.
That's awesome.
Hey, Daryl.
Nice. Daryl wants to know, has nothing to do with paper company, but he does want to know, what's the ideal group size for your programs?
Oh, okay. All right, Daryl. I really have met him before, by the way.
So
Let's
jealous.
see. When we talk about our offerings, so for professional development, I think we can really do any size. We have done about 75 people at one time, and we set them up in round tables. And we have a couple trainings scheduled where we have about 100 people coming. And we try and do the same setup with the round tables, because we know that when we're doing a training, just like in the classroom, we're teaching something and then we practice, teaching and then practice. So we're big on that. And so for professional development, I don't know like how large. I think we could easily say 100 or a little more than that. And I know a couple of us have done professional development for a small executive team that has been, I think there was like 8. Nope, it was 6. There were 6 in the room. So we have done the strategy and professional development for as small as 6. So that is much more intimate, and you have time to get into the weeds of things, especially when you're working with a team that has issues they need to work through, or like Jimmy, like Bob had asked Jimmy about dysfunctional teams, just to work through that dysfunction to get to a healthier place. Okay, so professional development, I would say the same for Dare to Lead, as far as it can be as small as probably 8 to 10, all the way up to 100 or so. And then leadership coaching. Generally, we can do 1-to-1, or we are starting an emerging leaders cohort, and that will involve coaching in a group setting, also virtually, but we can offer that in person as well. And that we would say no more than 12 for a cohort, but probably less than 10 would be ideal, just to get participation in the hour and a half a week that we have scheduled. So that would be leadership coaching, and then strategy and operating system. Seb, do you want to take that one?
Sure. Yeah.
And describe that one.
Yeah, so when it comes to strategy and operating systems, we use a system called System and Soul. And so basically, this works well with private and charter schools. And so what we do is we come in and we have what's called a day one. And then we will help the team. It's an 8-hour session or so, and we'll do a day one. Then we'll come back 30 days. In that meantime, objectives are worked on, and all of the action items and opportunities are worked on, and then come back on day 30 and day 31 and have a 2-day session to implement the rest of the system. And then what happens is we do weekly sync meetings with you on the program, on the computer with your leadership team. So just kind of going off of that, and what kind of spins off of that kind of comes maybe there's opportunity for leadership coaching and cohorts and this and that. So so that's the operating side of things. And Daryl from Scranton, I hope that answers your question. Moving on to Julie, will you take this next one?
Yeah, well.
Jenny from the block, Julie, would like to know, can you tell me about one of your success stories? Perhaps a team that was super reluctant, but ended up making huge progress.
Yeah. So one that comes to mind is a team that Jackie and I, or school that Jackie and I worked with this summer. They went through the Dare to Lead training, which is amazing work. But it was a summer PD. It was 3 days, and it with a school, and it was the first thing that they had done coming back, getting ready to start. They were like a week and a half out from the start of school. So you can imagine it wasn't super high energy when everyone first arrived. Everybody's, getting back into the swing of things. And we were working with a school. I Dare to Lead. We're talking about feelings and talking about emotions and how we work together. And it's pretty touchy-feely. So there were a lot of, like, I don't know how much you can see me. There were a lot of people they were sending us all the cues that this is not their jam from the start, is when we asked them to start by telling us where they are in the mood meter. But it was really cool to see and there were some people that were absolutely in from the beginning as well, but overall not. And so we're working through it, and we got to the section on vulnerability. And really looking at how vulnerable you are and your barriers that you put up. And the whole climate, Jackie, you couldn't remember this, the whole climate of the room changed in like that 30 minutes. And they started talking to each other, and like it got quiet. And then they started talking about themselves and really thinking about how they work with other people and how they present themselves. And the whole mood changed. We were probably, that was, I can't even remember at what point it was. We were partway through. And from then on, it just set on a different trajectory of like, we got buy-in and they were in. And one man told me, but we were on a break right after that section. And he told me, he said, 45 minutes ago, I thought I was good at this. and then he said, now I realize I have a lot of work to do. And I was like, wow, that is really high praise. To hear somebody be that vulnerable to tell me, tell me, a stranger, that. But it was really cool. And to see them really set the tone for the rest of the training. And by the time they left, they worked on their core values as a school district. They had decided their two values. Their two main core values. They were designing t-shirts. They were ready to go back, and like, they were all excited, leaving of like, okay, we're starting the school year and we're all on the same team on this. And so just to see that shift on a 3-day span was amazing. Yeah, pretty cool.
That's awesome. No,
Awesome.
that's great. Can I ask, I'm going to do a spin-off question from Jenny from the block here. Julie and Jackie, you both don't have to answer, but you are the two that have taken the lead a little bit more on Dare to Lead. And so, is there a better time to do Dare to Lead for schools? Do you feel like there's a better time, not a better time? What do you think?
I think it's always a good time to approach it. Good thing to talk about. But if you can do it like this school did it, in that right back to school time, it sets you off on a different foot starting back to school.
Yeah.
And we've gotten such good feedback from the groups that we worked with this summer, that we've gotten such good feedback on just the difference it made starting the school year, having worked through that together. Awesome. And you have this element. I don't know how many of you have gone to, like, I'm going to say church camp. I'm just going to be honest. I've been to church camp. You have the little mountain high. You're like, I'm going to be different. I'm going to change. And then you go back and you do the same things. They didn't have the church camp high. So they went back, and because so many of them went through the training together, when they've gone back, they've been able to encourage each other and really challenge each other to keep being vulnerable and have tough conversations and be brave leaders, even through hard things that are going on. And I know Jackie's had some follow-up with some of them as well, as they've dealt with hard things this fall. They've been there for each other. So that's cool. Jackie, I don't know what you want to add to that too.
I would just echo the same thing. I don't think there's a bad time, but I would say before school starts, or that few days before second semester starts, like after your break. I don't think at the end of the school year, because everybody, come on, we all know how it is at the end of the year. You have testing, and then party. So vacation happens. So I would lean more towards the beginning of the year or the beginning of second semester.
So if I understand you guys correctly, the beginning of the year, because it gets you off on the right foot, this or that, the it's not that the end of the year is a bad time to do it. It's just that we know educators' minds are ready for summer. They've kind of checked out all that.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yes. Yeah.
Because it's heavy duty stuff, right? So
It probably
It's
won't
a
have
real
as much of
parad-
an impact at that point.
sure.
Go ahead. Sorry, Jackie.
I was just going to say it's a real paradigm shift for a lot of educators and educational leaders. And I think if you can use the momentum from the training, like Julie said, and jump right into practice them, I think that's the heavy duty part, is that we all struggle a little bit with paradigm shifts, and that's what this is. So.
And if I'm just hearing you guys correctly, having the necessary people in the room for this training is so important, because we go to PDs, we come back to the school, we always say that, well, these people weren't there. How are we supposed to now do this and that, right? So having the necessary people in the room is very important at times, right? Awesome. Let's move on to the next. We have 2 questions left. Jim, will you take this one?
Sure, I'm happy to.
Tony S. from upstate New York.
Excellent. This is going to be a good question.
Tony asks, how do I ensure that my staff contributions to the development of our school beliefs, values, guided principles, and mission?
Yeah, I think Julie probably nailed this one at the outset. I think one of the gifts of the group of leaders of intentional schools is just to draw people into the conversation. We're not going to allow you to sit on the side. We need you to be a part of growing schools intentionally, no pun intended. Hey, my kids go to the public schools. Your kids go to school. And it really doesn't matter the kind of school. I happen to mention public. It doesn't matter the kind of school. We need people who are brave, courageous leaders, good listeners. My notes here and the question from Tony, we have a lot of offerings that could help, from coaching, Dare to Lead, Call to Courage, even going through assessments, and even strategic planning can play a role. But what we want to help schools become is places where we find the difference between minimum compliance and maximum effort. Schools where people are giving maximum effort make a difference for young people. And I'm not talking about test scores. I'm talking about moving the needle for opportunities for young people. The difference between having a job to do and having a calling to live into. And that's something that I think the 3 of you do better than anyone else in the world. So I'm excited. I hope that Tony gives us a call so we can help with his school. He's got a lot of young talent up there in upstate New York. I know. I've seen the promos. We could help, Tony.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jim. And we're going to go to our last question of the day. Jackie, will you take this one?
I will.
Miles from Brooklyn.
Speaking of young talent.
Yes.
What do you do prior to your coaching sessions to learn more about the organization you will be working with?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, to be really transparent, I am very good at stalking on the internet to learn. In fact, 2 of my best friends, I slid into their DMs and said, hey, we should be friends. It worked really well. So, I think I say that in jest, but I think learning about, well, we're talking about schools specifically, but each district has its own, each district or school has its own unique characteristics. It could be a Title I school, or it could be a prestigious private school. So doing my homework as far as that, looking up anything I can find about what they might be struggling with, scores or turnover, high turnover, or maybe new leadership. So just trying to do my homework about that. And I will say, a lot of having been in the educational system for almost 2 decades and now being on the consultant side, seeing how many of the issues transcend those differences I just talked about, that come down to communication, making courageous choices, holding people accountable, how to do that with respect. Yeah, so I think all of those type of things we work on in coaching sessions, those interpersonal or more emotional intelligence type skills, I think those transcend the individual differences in each district or school, but we certainly do talk about the individual characteristics as well. I think that maybe answers the question.
Yeah. So here's and I'll add this to what you're saying also, Jackie, is that it's part of us doing our homework also prior to entering an environment is we do at times will we'll have phone conversations to understand pain points, right, of the environment in the school that we're working with. We'll have some type of surveys anonymously or individually, just to make sure that we get everybody's perspective and so they can be honest, right? Give them a platform and an opportunity for them to be honest versus just being shy and not wanting, or the psychological safety of trying to answer or things out loud that people are not feeling safe in, right? So awesome. Yeah. So listen, you guys knocked it out of the park. Today's webinar, or this month's webinar, was Intentional Schools FAQs, Frequently Asked Questions edition. Thank you for being with us, and we will see you again in December.
Hey, thanks everyone. Thanks, Seb.
Yep.
Bye.